Hi, this is Lamar, and you're listening to Getting to Third Space with Lamar and Tom. A third space is a term that refers to a safe space for people to come together for respectful dialogue in a spirit of listening, sharing, and learning. In this podcast, we explore what it means to have third space conversations, and we try to model them. If you like what you hear in this podcast, please be sure to subscribe, share it, and of course, like it. The more people join us, the quicker we get to third space as a society. Now let's get to third space today.
Hey there, Lamar. How's it going today?
Tom, it is going wonderful. How about you today?
Oh, man. It's been great. The last 3 days have been absolutely beautiful here. I got a lot of really good golf in. And today, temperature's going up, as is the humidity. So it's not very pleasant. But yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
I can say we are already there. We've been flirting with temperatures in the mid 90s and humidity. I don't know. I'm going to guess somewhere in the 60% range, which is high for Kansas.
Yeah,
maybe 50%. It's high for us. So it's like you go out in the morning, you do your thing, take a siesta. Then you go out in the evening and do your thing again.
Well, speaking of siestas.
Yes.
So you didn't quite go to a siesta this weekend.
I did
but
not.
I understand you went to a fiesta.
Fiesta. I did. I went to a fiesta in Topeka, Kansas. It was called Fiesta Topeka. And it's a fundraiser from Our Lady of Guadalupe Church in Topeka. They've been doing it for over 30 years.
Wow.
And I've known about it, but I haven't ever been to it, and I haven't really, looked into it too much. And I thought, I knew there were going to be some dance troupes there, and I knew there was going to be some music, and of course, I knew there was going to be some amazing food. and there was all of that. I had a piece of cake that was trio leche.
Tres leches.
Tres leches. Okay.
Tres leches. I am
Thank you.
very familiar with tres leches.
Holy cow. I got about through half of that baby and thought, I'm not going to eat the rest of this because it's so good. I'm going to die of goodness. Yes, three different types of milk on a yellow cake with frosting. It's like, oh boy.
Yeah, really good.
It was good.
Yeah. Excellent.
And probably the best tamale I've ever had. And I do like tamales. But
excellent.
It was a great festival, definitely a local flavor. In fact, I had numerous conversations with people. You're standing in line for food, or you're standing in line for this, and they say, "Oh, what are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I come up from, South Central Kansas to photograph and experience this event." You did. You traveled all the way here for this event, and I did it. And I'm so glad I did.
It's a bit of a journey too. It's about 4 hours.
No, it's not quite. It's closer to probably 2.5 hours.
Okay.
Okay. So it's not terrible.
You obviously were not driving a 1976 Plymouth Duster. So
I was not. I was driving my Jeep. But I got some pictures. Check the show notes because I think we're going to post a couple of the pictures. The dancing was amazing, along with the food. The music was incredible. The whole spirit and atmosphere was just very, very positive.
Very nice.
So I had a great time, and hope to kind of find some more opportunities for that kind of festival.
Excellent. That sounds really good. Sounds really great.
It was a lot of fun.
Well, we subjected some friends of ours to bratwurst, and this weekend. We didn't start out making like kind of a distinctely German lunch, but that's what it ended up as.
Did you add some sauerkraut yet? And
we added sauerkraut, and we had German beans, which were amazing. They were really, really incredible. My wife made those, and they were just, it was really, really, really good. And old German beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, there really is a beer called Old German Beer. It is the cheapest beer you could ever imagine.
Okay.
And we had a couple cans of old German beer out,
Okay.
and yeah, it was nice.
You want to
And
make sure it's cold when you drink that.
oh, it was really cold. It was cold.
Okay.
Yeah. So we just had a really, really great time with them,
Oh,
and that was
sounds
nice.
good.
We took them to downtown Frederick, and we walked around by the canal and got some popcorn and ice cream, or caramel corn and ice cream, I should say. It was really good. But it was a good
we
weekend.
both have had a couple of cultural experiences over the weekend.
Yes, we have. We have. Yeah, absolutely. Not much dancing with the German stuff because you don't want to see that.
Yeah, a little bit of polka here and there, and
yeah. Last time one time when I started trying to learn the polka when we did ballroom dancing, I kicked myself in the shin so hard. I thought I was going to fall over. It was pretty awful.
I might have paid to see that.
Oh, well. So, Lamar, what are we doing today?
Well, I think a lot of times when I've talked to people, it's not always obvious that we don't agree on everything, because frankly, you and I do agree on a lot of things.
On a lot of things, yes.
A lot of things, not on everything. I'm a Chiefs fan. You're a Packers fan, right?
Yeah, because I like good football teams.
Even though we both like Iowa. Yeah. What'd you just say? There's a number of things we actually don't agree on. And a big part of what we do on this channel is we talk about how to have difficult conversations, right? And how to have civil conversations and learn from each other and all of that. We thought today would be a good opportunity to talk about some of the things that maybe we don't necessarily agree about. Some of them are kind of lighthearted, which is okay. We'll get into some things that may be a little bit more challenging.
Yeah. All right.
Does that sound good to you?
That sounds good to me. So what are we going to start with?
I don't know. What do you think the thing is that I may tease you about the most when it comes to something I don't agree?
My incredible good looks.
That's right.
Yeah. No.
No.
You're always you're always harassing me about golf.
Well, yeah. I don't know if harassing is
harassing.
But I do have a comment here, just here and there. About golf.
Just here and there. Yes. And so why don't you go ahead and share that comment, Lamar?
Yeah, you've mentioned several times that you don't think you think I don't believe that golf is a sport, and I've kind of gone along with that. And it's really probable that it's more about the fact that I'm a terrible golf player. I'm terrible at it. I've taken golf in college. I understand the basics of golf, and I've attempted to play. So I do, but I do have some thoughts about whether golf really is considered a competitive sport.
I know you do. And I tend to think it's pretty competitive.
Yes, you do.
And in fact, this last, I was in 3 competitive events earlier this week.
Well, tell me about what competitive events you were in. I mean, how were they competitive?
Well, the group that I play with, we play in teams. So, for example, each team has 4 people. And the way it's structured, we all have handicaps so that we can, that a handicap in golf is a number of points that you can adjust your score for, so that if you are an extremely good golfer and somebody else is an extremely bad golfer, you actually can still compete together. So, for example, one person in our group, they had 28 strokes. That meant that they had like 28 free points, right? Free strokes. And another person had 10, and the much better golfer had 10. So when you begin to put the score together by the team, you're able to come up with a net score that then you compare to other teams that you're playing with. So you're playing as a team, 4 people, and in this case, it was always the 2 best scores on the card were recorded as the team score.
So as a team, you were not taking into account the scores where people didn't play as well.
Or you did. So let me give you an example.
Okay.
So if it's a par 5, and let's say that a person is a not as good a golfer, and so they get, their handicap gives them 2 strokes on that hole. That means if they get a 7 on a par 5, you take 2 strokes off. Now they've got a net par. And if a person is a really good golfer and they don't get any strokes on that hole, and they get a gross score of 6, well, the person that had the 2 points on that, or the 2 strokes on that hole, they beat them by 1 stroke.
So the handicap allows a poorer player to get a better score.
Yes.
Even though they didn't earn that better score.
That's right.
So you see where
they earn it all right because they're out there flailing around.
So you see where I'm having a little challenge in my thinking about the competitiveness of this. It seems like there's a lot of rules, and I get that there are a lot of rules.
There's a boatload of rules, man,
in golf, and handicap plays into those rules. And I understand that. However, when I think about direct competition, it seems like there's a lot of fuzziness around the actual abilities of a golfer compared to the other golfers that are playing the game at the same time.
It depends on the professional golfers tour. There is no handicap system that comes into play.
I was aware of that.
I mean, that's just head-to-head competition. Mm-hmm. It's only at the amateur level that you really see the handicap come into play, and that's because otherwise, if you have somebody with a 28 handicap that goes out and they're playing against somebody with a 10 handicap, the 10 handicap is going to just bury them every time. And so where's the fun in that for either the low handicap golfer or the high handicap golfer? So the handicap system allows them to actually play in a way that is competitive with one another.
I think you said it well when you said, where's the fun in that? Because I think that I certainly don't disagree that it's a game. It's a kind of a type of a sport.
I was sure waiting to hear how you said that. I knew where you were going.
It certainly is a social game. I think when it gets into what I would consider a direct competitive sport, there's not a lot that you can do to influence the other player. For example, let's take tennis. In tennis, the skill of a tennis player would be to create shots that the other player has difficulty returning. That's one of the strategies, or to make a serve or whatever. You look at some of the other kind of competitive sports, baseball, which is a team sport, or let's take track that's not a team sport. It is in point accumulations, but let's take the 100-meter dash, for example. You as a runner are competing against your time, absolutely, but you're also doing that at the same time to compete and to beat someone out at the finish line. And so there's a direct competition at the moment that it's all happening. There's a lot of delays, it seems, in this competition of golf. It's like we don't really know who wins till we've added up all the numbers.
That's right. You don't know who's won until, and that's because they're trying to make it a game that is really equitable. For now. I would say that I would disagree very strongly with you on one point, and that is it can be a very, very competitive game. The evidence is the film Happy Gilmore, where Adam Sandler and Bob Barker get into a fist fight. One of the most classic scenes in a movie, with Bob Barker just kicking the holy snot out of Adam Sandler. They got Happy Gilmore 2 out now with the same cast. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it, but I've seen that it's out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a series on Netflix now. I can't wait to watch it. So
okay, so we disagree, yet we do agree on some points on this. And I can say it's a sport. I'll go there because I think you've made a good case. I do think, though, that it really doesn't rise to a level of direct competition that I think is in some of the more classic sports. But
except as played by Adam Sandler and Bob Barker.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Right.
Or Bill Murray,
Or Bill Murray. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Okay. Well, what else do we sometimes disagree about, Tom?
Well, I still keep waiting for you to come around to see the light. And
there's a song about that.
The light of Microsoft Windows.
Oh my gosh.
Because I've used Windows most of my life, all of my life. You used to, when you were on the right side of things, on when you were on the on the right side of the force.
But
then you went to the dark side of the force, and now you're an Apple.
So I am an Apple guy.
Yes,
but I have been an Apple guy for many, many years. But I've by necessity.
Here come the excuses. Here come the excuses.
By necessity, I had to be ambidextrous.
Okay. You had to be nicely flexible, huh?
I did. So in the workplace, and I'll two of my last workplaces, Microsoft Windows was the operating system of choice, and so I had to work within that world. And I understood it, and I worked with it. I'm thankful that we had good, strong IT departments, both businesses I was at. But I also integrated the Apple products whenever I could. And honestly, when I said I was no longer going to work for anybody, I walked out the door 2 years ago. I said I am no longer going to work within Microsoft Windows. And I have kept that promise to myself.
So you went full Apple.
Full Apple.
Full Apple.
Full Macintosh.
Yeah. Well, I worked on one Macintosh. It was an Apple 3C, 3E or 3C computer.
Probably 3E.
Yeah, floppy disks.
Probably 2E. Yeah.
Floppy disks.
Floppy disks. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was okay. I mean, I muddled through, but I had previously to that in a work experience had an Epson with 20 megabyte hard drive. Can you believe that? It was considered a pretty good computer. It actually was a very good computer. Yeah, I mean, now you're going to love this because I was at one organization I was at in the early 90s. I was considered the closest thing they had to an IT guy.
Not that I laugh at you. I laugh at that description. Yes.
Yes. Well, me too. And it was largely because I knew how to defrag computers.
Oh, you know how to run that program.
Nothing was networked.
Yeah.
And I knew how to run a defrag on an individual computer so that it would clean it up and keep it running, so.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you why I've stuck with Apple. And I'm going to be the first to say that Windows is a very strong platform. Now, they've had some really bad editions of Windows. If you remember the Millennium, terrible. And I think they even admit that was a bad edition. But I am not someone who likes to go in and tinker and do a lot of customization within a machine. And there are a lot of people who like to do that.
I kind of like to do that, actually.
Yeah.
I don't mind that until I just have hit a brick wall and I'm so frustrated with it, I'm about ready to throw it out the window.
Yeah. And folks who like to dig deep into systems find, the OS, the operating system for Apple to be not hospitable to that kind of behavior.
Yes.
And I get it. I think the interface for Apple is fairly easy to use, very friendly to use, is the term is often used. Once you kind of get the definition of how that system identifies itself, files and directories and all of that, it's pretty simple to use. I think the security of the Apple system over time, it's not perfect by any means, but I think it's been a very strong security system that doesn't require as many updates and patches as Windows has. When I was at work, it seemed like, I'm not over speaking here, but it seems like weekly we had a security update that we had to deal with on our Windows machines. And of course, working in the business I was at, security was, top level kinds of stuff. So that was always a challenge. I think that the Apple operating system has been a pretty stable system over all these years. So those are kind of the reasons I stick with Apple, and everything just works. It's a plug and play system. When I get a new piece of equipment, I plug it in, and it almost always works. Almost always works.
Well, the bottom line here is, Lamar, are you going to change?
Well, you haven't convinced me because you haven't given me a lot of things yet.
Well, that's all right. I'm not going to change. And I know you're not going to change.
No, I'm not going to change.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty content with.
Well,
with
part
how
of that
things
is you invest a lot of money into your system, right?
Well, yeah, but my stuff's getting old. It's getting to a point where I should probably replace some things, and I could, but go to Apple. But I don't think I'm gonna actually. So
why not?
Well, because it's what I know, and I'm comfortable with it, and I'm retired, and I don't have to.
All right.
All through the pandemic, I had to learn so many new software things because we had to switch suddenly from being live to everything remotely, and shooting videos and all that stuff. And it's like my learning curve in the pandemic was just practically straight up trying to figure out how to do all that. And I don't want any more learning curves like that.
Okay, so your argument basically is
I'm lazy.
Got it. All right.
Oh, but we've got far more interesting stuff to talk about, right?
I don't know. What do you think we need to talk about?
Well, how about Donald Trump's campaign promises and how he's doing? Because you know what? At the time we're recording this, this is almost exactly the 6-month anniversary of his last inauguration. And so, the news is beginning to look at how's his 6 months been, what's been happening. And so I guess because we are probably one of those premier news organizations out there,
Yeah.
we could do the same thing, right? So
maybe we should say that we're not here to talk about the politics behind this as much as we are to talk about how things are interpreted and how things appear.
Yeah, this is a friendly review of Mr. Campaign promises and kind of an assessment of, has he fulfilled them? I guess maybe there's two dimensions of this we're going to address. One is, has he fulfilled those promises?
Right.
And then the other thing, I guess, for lack of a better term, we could say, is that a good thing or a bad thing that he's fulfilled them?
Okay.
Yeah, and that's probably where we might run into a little bit of disagreement here and there, is how we see whether it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Okay. Well, we'll see where this goes.
So how are we going to do this?
I took us into the operating systems. How about if you lead us into this one?
Well, I think that if I remember right, when we were talking about this, there was a point that you wanted to make about what has come out from the White House.
Yeah, and I'm not sure,
because that's maybe a reasonably good starting. I don't think we're going to go through them point by point.
Yeah, and I think that's a challenge. So where do you get your data from, right? Some data has to come from the government because they're the ones that are collecting it. and no one else has access to some of the raw data. And so I think that's always a challenge. But the White House, obviously, the whitehouse.gov website, they do have an interesting article. Depends. Interesting is how you define that. Titled "President Trump has kept his promises and then some."
And then some.
Then some. Come out July 21st of this year, of 2025.
I think it was that. Yeah. That's right. That's current, right? Okay.
This is current,
Yeah.
and we're not going to go through them, but there are 20 promises that they identify, and I'm just going to hit a couple of. We're not going to talk about them necessarily in this context, but I'm going to talk about what this might mean. Seal the border and stop the migrant invasion. Notice the words that are used. Carrying out the largest deportation operation in American history, ending inflation, and making America affordable again, and then on down the list. There's 20 of these, and they say have a check mark: promise kept, promise kept. I think that what's important for us to understand, regardless of where you're at politically, and certainly if you're on the left, if you're in the center, if you're on the right, whether you're Democrat, Republican, or Independent, or none of the above, we have to understand who's reading whatever material is coming out and how that impacts them. So if you were someone or in one of those categories that is saying, I think we need a change in the administration, it's really important to understand, I think, that this type of information that says these 20 promises have been kept, and someone who voted for this administration would say, yes, these promises are kept. This is what I voted for. This reinforces why I'm very much in favor of this administration and administrations in the future that are similar. Now, what you talked about, what I think is important, is understanding, okay, so what is the cost for some of the, quote, promises that are kept? Dollar costs, people costs, integrity costs, etc., relationship costs. But I think it's really important to realize that those who bought into the campaign promises during the campaign time would see this as a big win.
Yeah, they would. They would see it as a big win, and but fortunately, we do have some other folks that have eyes on this, and they're tracking this, right? And so we also found you actually found this article, and it was really excellent. It's called "Tracking Trump's Presidential Promises," and this is from the Associated Press. And they list 25 promises, and they evaluate them on whether or not the promise has been kept, whether it is currently in progress of being kept, and then they have a category called "It's complicated."
Yeah.
I love that category. Maybe yes, maybe no, maybe not now, but maybe in the future. It is complicated. So, there's several categories of those: classified records, education, energy, foreign policy, government, healthcare, immigration, January 6th, tariffs, taxes, etc. And then within a number of those, there are sub pieces or sub strategies, I guess you'd call them, related to the larger topic. So I think we were thinking about just kind of going through those, and some of them we can touch very, very lightly and just say,
Well, I think one that's really relevant today is the classified records. So the AP would say the status of this is kept by executive order.
Yes. This was July 7th.
July 7th, right? Which is still very current, right?
Right, but, very current.
But things like John F. Kennedy's assassination documents have been released, and I don't know. There was investigative files on Hillary Clinton, I think, that are being released or have been released. I think so. But what, Tom? What is it right now that seems to be a fly in the ointment, if you want to say that, to keeping this promise?
Well, it's one of Donald Trump's friends, whom he now is going, oh no, former friend, and Jeffrey Epstein. And so the John F. Kennedy assassination records have been released. And also this last week, since this article came out, the Martin Luther King
That's right.
records related to that, over the objections of his family, by the way, because of the things that Hoover, we later know that Hoover did, to try to incriminate him, Dr. King. So yeah, and then and now we got this whole thing going on with Epstein, and whether or not those files are going to be released. The breaking news last night, actually, from the New York Times was that, and not actually the Wall Street Journal again, picked up by the New York Times, I believe, was that Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, met with Trump back in May and told him that he was named numerous times, multiple times, in the Jeffrey Epstein files. Now, we don't know what the context is. We don't know what that means exactly, but then, we know that a body cartoon, a birthday card, was released by Wall Street Journal.
B-A-W-D-Y, right?
Yeah, B-A-W-D-Y. And that's creating quite a bit of a fervor. So the complicating there is that his base, who Trump had promised the total open transparency, is now wanting to see all of this, and Trump is like, oh, I don't know about that. I mean,
okay, well,
yeah, so that's fun.
Let's move on.
Yeah. Oh, please, let's move on.
Education.
Yep.
Appears that it seems to be in progress. Federal funds being cut, and
one thought more about the classified records. I kind of rate that as kind of a neutral thing. It's like, okay, a lot of these things are in the past, so release them. I don't have any problem with that, and I think that if Trump wants to go ahead and do that, that's great. But that ought to be done with full transparency. If you're going to do that with JFK stuff, if you're going to do that with King stuff, if you're going to do it with Hillary Clinton stuff, guess what? You do it with your stuff too, right?
Okay. I think we're in agreement.
Yeah, I think so too. Probably. Okay. All right. Back to education.
Education. Federal funds being cut. The whole critical race, transgender conversations, etc. That seems to be in progress.
And the same thing. Well, yeah. And the vaccine and the masks mandates, that's rated as complicated. And what's the
elimination? The elimination of the Department of Education is in progress.
So, how do you feel about that? Do you think these changes in education are good, or bad, or otherwise?
Well, I think that it's a mixed bag. I think critical race theory is way over complicated and shouldn't be that complicated. Systemic racism is something that has been defined and supported by good data for years. But it has been vilified, by individuals who I don't think really understand what systemic racism means. So I think it's a mixed bag. The transgender in the issues related to athletics is a very complicated conversation to have, and I haven't fully jumped on board with supporting all of that at this point. I'm still trying to work my way through it, recognizing that people's rights and people's abilities and people's identity is all mixed up in that whole conversation. So that's a messy one for me to walk through, but I don't want to say that it's not important. It's just one that I haven't jumped on yet. I don't know. What about you?
Well, I think that overall, I would rate, the promises that are being kept on education as being generally negative.
Okay.
I don't think that that's being very helpful to overall the education of young people in the United States. We, you're a product. I'm a product in grade school and high school, secondary school, of public education. I'm a big fan of public education, and I really don't like what is happening in the Trump administration around education at this point. Some of the specific issues, I would agree with you. I think some are really, really complicated. I err on the side of what is best for the individuals involved. And so I want to be as respectful and caring as I possibly can, even in those situations that I may not have a full and complete understanding simply because of who I am and what my life experience in education is. But I've got real problems with the cuts to public education and the attempted death of the Department of Education. I think, could be you and I were great. We benefited greatly because even before there was a Department of Education, you and I graduated from high school.
Yeah, we still made it through.
We still made it through, and Iowa was considered as having one of the very best Department of Educations in the state Department of Education in the country, and we got really excellent public school educations there. But at the same time, I think that what the federal Department of Education has attempted to do is to bring the overall quality of education up for everybody across the country and across the socioeconomic divide that exists within our country. And I think that's a worthy effort. And I'm really disappointed to see the Department of Education under attack by the current administration. So maybe he's kept that promise, but it's a promise I wish he wouldn't have kept.
I think that I think it's important for us to realize, though, that the Department of Education is influential depending on who's in the administration, right, left, or the middle.
That's right.
And so I that part bothers me a bit. Is where the schools within a state get funding or don't get funding or get influenced or not influenced depending on who's in the administration. And I understand parity. I think that's really important nationally across states. And I think that's where the Department of Education, I think, shines. But I do have issues where the department is influencing the states, right, left, or center, based off of who's in administration. And so that's something I think needs to be addressed. Here's something I don't know, but it's all across the government. It's important that we take a look at where's the excess. Do we have areas that we do need to trim, that we need to cut back? Do we have too much redundancy or dead weight? I'm all for that. I think that's an important exercise to take place. I'm not supporting doing it, though, with a meat cleaver, which I kind of feel this is that approach.
Or a chainsaw.
Yeah, that's been part of the... Yeah, I got it.
Has been part of the problem.
I went with a meat cleaver.
That was nice of you.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's move on.
Okay. All right. Energy.
Yeah.
They indicate that he's kept, the two are in progress, rolling back the Biden-era auto emissions rules. and terminate state emissions waivers like California's. And he says he's kept the declaring a national emergency to spur more drilling. Well, it's pretty easy to declare a national emergency. I mean, yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah. All of those are by executive order, by the way.
By executive order, right? Withdraw the U.S. from the Paris Agreement, cut energy prices in half. I have mixed feelings about these 5 individual things, I guess. I don't know how I feel about the Biden era auto emission rules and the terminate the state emissions waivers in California for this reason. I think it's an honorable thing to try to get people moving away from combustion engines to electric engines. Tom here. You know, getting to third space is always free. We love doing this, and it is a labor of love we hope makes the world a better place. We don't ask you for money, but we do ask you to help us grow our audience. Hit the like button, share the podcast, and subscribe yourself. All of these will help us grow. Thanks. Here's the issue for me. My concern about a quick conversion to electric is I don't think we have the infrastructure for it.
Right. Yeah.
We just don't have it yet. And we haven't invested in the infrastructure. I would not rent an electric car right now to drive across country because I wouldn't be absolutely certain that I could find a place to recharge. I mean,
well, as a camper who has run out of gas before, I know what it's like to try to be driving across the country and you have no power. It is a helpless feeling. No, I get it, but I do think it's imperative that we put resources towards making progress towards electric, power. Mandating becomes another question for me.
And at the same time, though, I think we need to be engaged in those things that are really promoting a healthier environment.
Okay.
And like you. I'm okay with cut energy prices. If he can cut the energy prices, that's fine. I mean that affects us across the board from electricity to gas to natural gas to all kinds of things, and that's great. But in my estimation, it needs to be done in a way that doesn't have implications for the environment.
We're going to move us along here, Tom.
No,
let's talk about foreign policy.
Energy.
Let's talk about foreign policy.
No,
for a little bit.
Not foreign policy. Okay, go ahead.
He made some promises on foreign policy, and particularly on the war in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine, and between in Gaza between Israel and Hamas, and how has he done? It's interesting. They talk about it here as being complicated. I'm gonna disagree with that. I think he's failed. I don't think he's met that at all.
I think he's failed too, miserably. Now, do I like the idea that he would be genuinely working on these? Yes. I would like to see those wars end. I think both are horrific wars, but but he's far from getting it done. He's far, and I think that's notable because he stood and he bragged, I can end these wars. I can, particularly the Russia-Ukraine war, I can end that in 24 hours. No, you can't. No, you can't. And if you were really thinking about it, you'd know before that time that you can't. It's complicated. But I would, if he can do that, go for it.
I think that he has failed because he gave a time frame he was going to get it done, and which he does that kind of thing. So technically he's failed on it. I agree. I'm glad that they are continuing to work with it. It's important, but I think he failed on his promise.
He's only 179 days past due at this point.
All right. So the next area is government, where he has called the deep state, uprooting the deep state, firing corrupt employees, corrupt bureaucrats, he called them. What do you think? There's a lot of people who aren't working in government anymore.
What do I think? Well,
I mean, did this need to happen? Was this an okay thing?
All right. Is it important to keep a government lean and mean and trim? Yes. There can be waste in government. There can be. I completely get that. I understand that. And it's hard for me not to personalize this because I know a number of people that have lost their jobs, and others that I know tangentially, and I'm not exactly sure, about their work. I can't say with certainty, but boy, a lot of really good people have been lost.
Okay.
And I think that's really, really sad. And unfortunately, I would not evaluate a lot of Mr. Trump's appointees as being any better replacements. And I'm trying to be judicious on that, but I think, yeah.
Okay. So is it important? Well, I'm not going to phrase this as a question. I'm going to phrase it as a statement. I think it's important. I think it's important that, boy, this is going to be hard to say it this way. I think it's important that corruption is, that someone shines a light on corruption and moves those individuals out, whether through legal discourse or just, terminating their employment. I think that is really, really important. And so yeah. I want to affirm that as something an administration ought to do.
Yeah. And yeah, I would agree with that. And I do think there is a difference between corrupt and incompetent.
Oh yeah, I agree.
And I think that you have to be willing to get rid of the incompetent as well as the corrupt. And but I think the problem that I've seen in federal government is not so much the corruption as it is the incompetence.
I would agree, yeah.
And I hate to say this, but if we want to find both incompetence and corruption, I think we have to go higher up in the government to the congressional level. I mean, there's some pretty corrupt individuals in there and some pretty incompetent ones too.
Absolutely. And I think one of the challenges that I think exists there is the ability to shine a light on it. There's a lot of layers of protection that I think needs to be addressed. Let's move on. Healthcare.
All right. Healthcare.
I didn't see healthcare as being one of the check marks that the White House has put on their list. And I don't see that happening. I think this is maybe item by item. There can be some wins here that this administration may see that they're making. Certainly, the influence that they've had both in who they've appointed as judges and the Department of Justice and kind of the route that they're taking, they've had an impact on people's rights to women's health care. That would include abortion, but isn't exclusively about abortion. I think that's a huge one. I think that's going to raise its head again when the time comes here in the next year and a half to elect new officials.
Well, and the specific thing that they mentioned in the AP article was making in vitro fertilization treatment free. And my perspective on this is that once again, the government is intruding on personal decisions. Mm-hmm. We're trying to influence your personal decision not to have kids, or if you want to have kids, we will push you towards in vitro fertilization. And along with that is a not so subtle encouragement to have children, even if you don't want to. And it's like, whose business is it of yours, mm-hmm. government, whether people have children or not? I mean, grandparents are worried about that with their kids, but hey, I want grandkids, right? But government, no, stay out of it. It's not your decision. It's just not your decision.
Okay, I'm going to continue to move us along here, Tom.
Immigration,
one of the
right?
things that we need to probably spend some time talking about is immigration, and something that they don't mention here, but I think is important for us to talk about is, closing the border down.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the promises that Trump was going to have. He's going to close the border down, and I think that um, both, in fact, everybody at some levels felt something needed to happen at the borders. From everything that I can see, depending from the far left to the far right, everyone was saying we got a problem, we got to fix the problem. What the problem was and how to fix it, that's been the challenge, right? But when I take a look at the numbers, I went to USA Facts, which seems to be a pretty middle of the road bias or unbiased site. They're reporting that in June of this year, compared to June of 2024, there's been a 92.7% decrease in illegal detected border crossings. That's a pretty huge. So I would say that he has effectively kept that promise.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I mean, all the data is out there saying that the border has been effectively closed, and they talked about various things here, but in this AP article. But the thing that I want to point out is that at a time when, after years and years and years of trying to put together a real immigration plan,
okay,
the Republicans pulled the rug out on that from under that at Trump's bidding. And so now everything that he's doing, it's harsh. It's pretty harsh. It's pretty cruel in terms of how he's treating people, in terms of the detention camps and how ICE is functioning. You know what? You could have had a much kinder way of dealing with this if the Republicans and including Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, had decided not to pay attention to Trump and go ahead and pass the immigration bill that had been put together with Democrats. And we'd be in a different place, probably a better place.
So I don't 100% disagree with you, but there's some pieces of this that I'm not quite on the same wavelength with. Mm-hmm. Because I really do separate shutting the border down from deportation exercises. Now, they are connected. I get that, but I think that doing something to halt the illegal, if you want to use the term illegal. Now, I'm not sure what the definition is of illegal, because all the data is coming from government databases, but of illegal crossings of the border into the U.S., if they have been shut down by 92%, like they're saying, that could be a very good thing. That could give us a bit of breathing room. The deportation piece of saying people who are already in the U.S., how are we going to handle those individuals? Which is what I'm hearing you talk about, is another thing. Now, the deportation was happening with Biden, it was happening with Obama, right? It was happening with Bush. I mean, they were all having deportations. In fact, fairly significant deportations. I think what concerns me, and maybe we're talking about the same thing here, is the lack of discretion that's being used on who we're targeting for deportation. What was fed to us during the campaign was, the criminals, those who are here illegally and are criminals. But what seems to be happening is kind of we pull everyone in that we think is not here legally or whatever, and then we'll sort it out later.
That's right.
And to me, that is such a dangerous precedent to put into place. And the amount of power and abuse of that power that happens to the people who are engaged in the activity of identifying that group. Then you add on top of that, here's where I think we totally agree, is this anonymity of who's actually exercising these arrests or whatever you want, detainees. That's a real disturbing image to me. Yeah. So tells me everything's not above board.
Well, I think the point I'm trying to make is a little bit different than that. So you always have downstream and upstream strategies, right? What I see here, on this piece of paper in front of us, that article from the AP, is these are basically downstream strategies. It's like playing whack-a-mole. All right. Well, we need to deport people. Whack. We need to close the border. Whack. We need to make sure that we are screening people more carefully. Whack. Right. My point is, an upstream solution is a coherent immigration policy in which all of these things are addressed. Borders addressed, who can come in is addressed, all of that. And it was there. It was there. And Trump pulled the rug out from under it by persuading the Republicans to shut it down. I'll give him credit for closing the border. That's fine. But all I'm saying is that could have been done as part of a coherent immigration policy and plan.
Sure.
And he completely torpedoed that.
He did. And he had the power to do it, and Congress was following his lead, and it happened. And we are just about out of time today.
Oh, darn. We're just kidding. Well, we can whack off the next three things. We only got three things left. I think we can.
January 6th, he promised to pardon the January 6th writers, and he kept that.
He did.
He did it with a stroke of the pen, and I would say I don't like the fact that he kept it, but if I am someone who voted for this president, and that was one of his promises, I got to get a check mark there. Say, yeah, he kept it. Tariffs. He said he loves tariffs. Yeah. Tariffs is one of the best beautiful words in the dictionary. Well, it is complicated, and everyone knows that you put in the tariffs into place, and you want to talk about whack-a-mole? This is whack-a-mole. You put tariffs in place, and you can't control the world's economy because you're sitting here putting tariffs in place. Canada's figured out how to get around it. Mexico's considered it, is getting around it. And they're all glad handing the U.S. saying, oh, yeah, well, but in the back rooms, they're making their deals. What about taxes?
Oh, that's interesting. I'm not a big fan of the tax cuts as he's proposed them. Now, has he done what he said he was going to do on taxes? Absolutely. Although when you read the fine line around the Social Security taxes, you're not necessarily, because not everybody is going to get a tax cut.
You mean you and I aren't going to get a tax cut on this?
I have no idea I'm so confused by it. I have no idea if I'm going to get it. But, I will say this. I'm not a fan of that tax cut, because taxes are the economic engine that keep us going. And as Americans, we all owe taxes, and we all should pay those taxes. Through the eyes of his supporters, he's cutting taxes. But I don't think that what even some of his supporters see is that some of these taxes that are being cut are not really going to benefit them. In fact, they may hurt them.
So, Tom, to kind of wrap this section up here, basically...
Well, I got more rants I could do, man.
We're not going to go there. We do agree that in the most strictest sense of the word, he has kept a number of promises.
He has kept a number of promises.
Okay.
It's just that I don't necessarily like a lot of the promises. I like some.
All right.
But not all.
So let me ask you, Tom, with this exercise, we haven't had this conversation before. How do you think we've done agreeing and not agreeing?
But, I will rant every now and then. And that's just kind of part of my personality of ranting. But I think that by and large, we did find areas that we agree on. We found some areas we agree less on, and I think it's a helpful exercise. I think what is really useful to me is your reminder that the lens through which we see these things is important.
Absolutely.
That if we're looking at this strictly through the lens of, are these promises kept to his base? And if you're a supporter of Mr. Trump, would you feel like the promises are kept? The answer is yes, right? If we're looking at it through an evaluative lens that says, are these good things or bad things? That's a very different lens.
I think in addition to that, this exercise, I think what we wanted to share, regardless of what the conversation is about, regardless of how passionately you feel about something, one, humor is always a good part of a conversation, but I think listening to the perspective of the other person, being able to identify what in that perspective you do agree with, because many times you may be arguing against something you actually agree on, just because maybe it wasn't said the same way you would say it.
That's right.
Just like when we talked about the border versus immigration versus deportation. I think that identifying where we do agree is important to help us work on the things we don't agree on, if that's important for us to do. We don't have to agree on everything.
Nope.
And you and I are not going to agree on Apple versus Microsoft. We're not going to, it's just not going to happen.
Chiefs versus Packers.
Yeah. And, but I think that people have become so dichotomized that they have drawn the line. We're so entrenched in our own camps over the last few years that we're blinded by the sense that someone would disagree with us. And if they disagree with us, they're not okay. They're not worthy of a relationship. They're not worthy to listen to. They're not worthy to understand and value. And that's what I think bothered both of us, is the devaluation, the dehumanizing of someone who disagrees with us.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to try give another try at something here with this podcast. And that is, I've been trying to put together some polls that people can easily access. We did one right after our podcast on the 4th of July, and in which we asked people, how did you spend the 4th of July? And we just left the link kind of quietly in our in our show notes. And one whole person responded to it from Hawaii. And they said, I spent time with friends, and how do you feel about, what does it mean to be patriotic? They had a really neat comment. It's a personal commitment to giving back to your community, working to ensure that the basic needs of all people are met. I thought that was a really nice sentiment about what it means to be patriotic. Well, we're going to try another survey, and these are very short surveys. They're 2 questions, and it really is on the same topic that we're talking today. The survey is entitled "Promises, Promises, Promises," and it's basically, we're asking, did President Trump keep his campaign promises? Yes or no, and otherwise. And then overall, do you feel that's a positive thing that he has or hasn't, and why or why not? And that's it.
Well, we look forward to seeing some responses from people. All right. Well, we need to come to a close with this. This has been an interesting experience for both of us, and I hope it's helpful. We look forward to maybe in the future, we've got some great guests coming on that we're looking forward to interviewing. So stay tuned.
All right. Hey, have a great week, Lamar. See you next time.
All right. Take care, man.
Tom here. Thank you for listening to Getting to Third Space with Lamar and Tom. Remember to click on subscribe to get notices about new episodes, and be sure to like and share the podcast as well. Opinions and ideas expressed in this podcast are solely those of Lamar Roth and Tom Klaus, and we'd like to hear your opinions and ideas too. You can leave us a voice message on Spotify, or you can email us at the addresses found in the show notes. Also, in the show notes, you can find links to some of the things we talked about today, so you can check them out yourself. Until next time, keep moving forward toward third space. This podcast was recorded live in Maryland, and God only knows where in Kansas.